What's going on, everybody? Hope you're having a great day. So what exactly is Kotlin Multiplatform Mobile, and why should you care? All that and more coming up next. Stick around. All right, so to kick things off here, really wanted to kind of go over a quick overview of what is multi-platform in general. What does that term really mean in the field of software development? Because I realize a lot of people watching this may or may not even know what multi-platform means. And it's kind of become a buzzword lately. There's a lot of different multi-platform frameworks per se that, especially in web development, and when you consider web and mobile kind of meshing together. I know some people have heard of Flutter, which uses Dart programming language. It's become kind of an overused term. When it comes to Kotlin Multiplatform Mobile, it's really not a very difficult thing to really grasp or wrap your mind around. So multi-platform really as a whole, what does it mean? It really just means that you're able to write code once and share it across multiple platforms. And so where that really gets interesting and helpful is when you start to have large code bases or really popular apps. If you're a mobile engineer, like what we talk about the most here on this channel, when you're a mobile engineer and you're working on a large app, and let's say you have users across both Android and iOS, or you want to reach users on both Android and iOS, the less code you have to write, really the better off everyone is. You're able to keep features kind of more closely aligned because you're not having to write code separately in iOS and then write the same code in Android using Kotlin. So I'll share this little graphic here with everybody, and I got this on zoohiki.com, and I'll actually link that website here in the description since I obviously want to give them credit for this. It's a great visual, I think, when you really start to look at, what is the mesh point here between Android and iOS, and what exactly is shared when it comes to the code base. So it's important to understand here that what you're seeing in this graphic is really everything from the middleware to the client side. So we're obviously not seeing any of the back-end code here, where you would have it, maybe in the cloud somewhere, maybe in AWS, maybe you'd have some kind of like Lambda function or some kind of API that you're calling. This is really just focused on the UI layer, and we're really the middleware layer to the UI layer. You'll see there where it says shared business logic. So shared business logic is what's actually trying to access that API information, or, grab that data from a database in the cloud, get IoT data from pub/sub models, something to that effect. But what you see there with the shared business logic is that's kind of where a lot of your code reuse can happen. You basically write all of your implementation code on the client side for your network calls. So if you're using Dagger or Hilt, retrofit, those networking frameworks, those all sit at that shared business logic level of being able to determine, okay, what are your use cases? What does your client-side code need to do to be formatted to call the backend code? So all of that is actually in Kotlin Multiplatform Mobile. All of that is shared business logic. And what does that mean? So if you look at the two boxes above that, you'll see on the left you've got the Android UI Kotlin piece, but on the right you've also got the iOS UI Swift and Swift UI piece. So what this essentially is telling us here is you have the shared business logic that can now be called by both Android code and iOS code within the same app. So when you're writing your implementation code, when you're writing out your use cases on the client side, all that good stuff, you're doing your data access object translation, your mapping to objects, that sort of thing, all of that can actually happen within that shared layer, and you're only writing that code once. So then when it comes to, actually writing platform specific code, which is that second layer above that you see right there, what you have to do there is you're just essentially writing your Jetpack Compose UI in the Android case, and you're writing your Swift UI code in your iOS case. And so kind of like what I said initially, this is a really, really cool tool and cool framework to consider when you consider A, either large code bases, or B, if you're an engineer who's trying to create an open source app on your own, but you don't want to have to write double the code in your implementation layer. You can use KMM to essentially only write that code once, and then you're only having to write your iOS specific code and your Android specific code separately. So it cuts down on overhead, obviously cuts down a lot on bugs. You're not implementing the same thing twice, so you don't have to worry about writing twice the number of test cases, twice the number of use cases. It really does make your life a whole lot easier. So hopefully that made sense from an introduction perspective of what Kotlin Multiplatform Mobile is and kind of how it fits into the overall code architecture landscape. And so hopefully that clears that up a little bit for you guys.